Hello friends, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel and the 2022-23 season Premier League guide. I love this video, I think it offers so much, and if you enjoy this video, by the end of it, make sure you hit the like button for me. I'm going to put a little target on this one. Let's go with 6k. 6k likes on this video. What am I going to offer you in this video? I'll tell you what. First of all, for every single team, we're going to have a talk about what to expect. Then we're going to put forward the key player for each squad, the biggest strength, and then the biggest weakness going into the new season. We're nearly at 200k now, so if you haven't subscribed to the channel as of yet, we've also got some wicked lives coming up this week, so make sure you hit the notification bell as well. What's going to be crucial this year is the managers in particular. I don't think there's ever been a better sort of stable of managers in the Premier League, and I think the important thing is that we look at those guys and think, could we do as well as them? And I think that's always a big question. We need to answer that question sometimes. And I'm delighted that due to the fantastic sponsor that we have for this Premier League guide video, you can prove to the world that you are a top level manager because you can get yourself Top 11. Top 11 is a free-to-play mobile football manager game. If you haven't played before, you need to get your hands on this. The game has already been played by 260 million players worldwide so far, and is currently available in 31 different languages. The reason I was so excited to partner up with Top 11 is because I know my audience, and my audience will love this game. You guys are very analytical, you like to think about your team, and you like to put things in place, and so getting this on your phone, a free-to-play game, football management game, is the perfect thing for you. And what's more perfect is that not only can you challenge the world, you can challenge your friends as well. You're in charge of every aspect of your club, signing players, running training, setting up formations, and ultimately leading the squad to winning trophies. And that's just part of the experience of managing. You guys know, don't you? I mean, what's this and what's this? It's me and football management going hand in hand. This is how I got on. So crucial one for me, Zreli. I got Zreli through the door in an auction. Delighted to get him. Of course, you can auction for players, make bids and sign those players. He was absolutely on fire for me as I looked to pippity-pop it about. Sadly, a big part of football management as well is making those big moves and upsetting a few people. Of course, I've had that in the past and I was ready to go again. And Frad, or Fraud as I like to call him, he had to come out and I had to get Carr in. You know, he's like a well-oiled machine, this guy, and he was able to set up some goals for us. In particular, Macaulay, my boy, was flying and banging them in. And of course, everyone's got their own style, but for me, they're humans, not numbers. And if you look at the final scoreline, 3-0, the morale, superb, because that's what I'm about keeping people up, apart from Fraud, of course. And pippity-pip-pop-pop, it's the Allcott way, 59% possession, up yours. God, I'm good. With that victory came rewards and a new jersey. I went for the gorgeous little purple number as my new away kit. What I really like is the fact that you are playing real people out in the big wide world. And also you have Jose to hold your hand throughout, which is really, really helpful when you're sort of acclimatizing to the game initially. Make sure you don't miss any important elements of Top 11's game. So I really love this league format as well. And of course you don't want to be in the Super League. That's the mid-table bit. I want to be right at the top, making my way up. And I kick off today, in fact, at 5:59, first game. Delighted to get started, and I think something's happening here. That's what I'm trying to get across here. Get it on your commute, and then on your way in, play Top 11 against other people or set up a league with your friends. It's an absolute no-brainer in terms of downloading it and just having some fun and dominating if you're me. I know what you lot are like. You like to prove yourselves when it comes to your football knowledge. So get into the description, download Top 11 right now. As I said, completely free. And let's see if you're the special one. Because the Jose Mourinho's links for this. You get it. Download it. Newcastle United, what to expect? More of the same, but it feels like it's going to be kind of incremental. And Eddie Howe is now putting in place truly what he wants. You saw it in the second half of the season. It was a 4-3-3. You saw the change in, say, someone like Joe Linton and the ability for these players to stay higher up the pitch once they made those runs. But then adding the quality in the back line and in Bruno Guimaraes, who is a joke, continues to be a joke. And it's one of those where it's those key additions that you'll then just slot into the team will gently take this Newcastle side to where they want to be, it seems. Key player, you probably saw this one coming, Bruno Guimaraes. The thing with him is, and in the video that a lot of you Newcastle fans saw, we spoke about him being a 6, getting on the ball and talking about his passing range. We still haven't truly seen that. And with John Joe Shelvey looking like he's going to be out for a little while, you might see him play in that position. But last year, of course, he played as an 8 and we saw something different. That ability to arrive late into the box just shows how complete he is as a player. Got himself 1 assist and 5 goals from 11 starts. he is a class above for this Newcastle United side. Absolutely invaluable to them and just sexy as hell as well. Biggest strength, I think they've got some real gems in defence. Sven Botman's a great signing that's going to grow with the club. I think people are kind of underestimating how exciting he will be for them, both defensively, but also his passing range as well, the ability to switch the play, to find Alan St-Maximin, Ryan Fraser at times, or even just hit the front man. He's a he's a sort of Van Dijk figure, I think, in time for Newcastle. I'm not saying he's as good as him. Take a breath. But also, the likes of Trippier, he's just a class act as a footballer. Target, very solid as well. Dan Burn, really strong defence that did brilliantly last season. And I think expect Trippier to be able to have that little bit more attacking freedom. Target to tuck in, and it to be a very solid back line for Newcastle this year, which gives them a great platform to then see what happens this year. Biggest weakness is the fact that, some people, not many people, but there's always a percentage, will be going, if they don't start well, there's going to be a different kind of pressure on them. But in terms of the personnel, it's the right wing position, I think, for me. In terms of wide areas, they do feel a little bit short with Fraser on the right hand side. Doing a short gag, I'm absolutely disgusted with myself there as a short king. But they need to improve in that area if they want to go up a level and to offer more threats, because at the moment the focus can truly be on Alan St-Maximin on that left-hand side, and there isn't the same concern on the other side, which makes life a little bit harder for them at this moment in time. Chelsea, what to expect? Well, I think you could have expected a move to a back four, but the recruitment hasn't, at the time of recording, been, I guess, what Tuchel wants. I think that was very clear. He set up with that 4-2-3-1 formation against Arsenal, got spanked 4-0 and made some pretty strong statements afterwards, talking about how they're not going to be ready for the Premier League season. So it's a funny feeling around Chelsea right now, and I think with that in mind, I would expect them to revert back to 3 at the back. Also, you want to get the best out of Chilwell and Reece James, and that would facilitate that. Key player for me, Mason Mount. He's just so reliable, and he's one that I think, because he's so reliable, I don't know, people probably don't give him the credit he deserves. If 4 at the back, 3 at the back, this guy will be playing. He will be important. Last season he was the top scorer with 11 goals in the Premier League, top assister with 10. Whatever happens with Chelsea and the millions that they will spend, wherever it might be, there will always be a place for Mason Mount. He is, he's so valuable to Tuchel in terms of his intelligence, but also the output as well. Biggest strength has got to be chance creation, because there's some fantastic players in this Chelsea team. I think there's a cloud over the club at the moment, but Mount, Sterling, Chilwell, Reece James, just a few options in terms of chance creation this year. Chilwell on the left-hand side as well, Kovacic, the list goes on. In terms of creating an opening from nothing, there's so many players that can do something for them. In terms of biggest weakness, ultimately, Chelsea Football Club want to win the title. It's not like Brighton. Brighton don't want to win the title. Chelsea want to win the title. I'm saying something obvious here. Here's what's really obvious. You're not winning the league with Kai Havertz as a false 9 unless you're Man City. And so Chelsea need to get that striker that takes them to the next level. It didn't work with Lukaku. They've been burnt there. The Chelsea curse in terms of strikers continues to go on. And there aren't that many options this year with only a few weeks left of the window. And without that, there's no way Chelsea can win the title. What to expect for Fulham? Well, I think with the likes of Palhinha, Solomon Pereira and Mbabu coming through, Marco Silva's going to stick with what he knows best, that 4-2-3-1 that brought them so much success last year. Last season, they were very attacking, Fulham, very attacking, averaging 2.22 goals per 90, mainly because Mitrovic was just an absolute menace, able to get to deal with 2 centre-backs, but importantly, they showed huge width at times, which was quite brave, but they also, I think, felt very comfortable at that level, a lot of the players there. What's going to be interesting is if they go with that same kind of tenacity and I guess optimism in terms of utilising that width to try and give Mitrovic enough space to have that penalty box for himself. The crosses come in and then he gets his arm across someone or gives them that little nudge and he's a little bit too much, because Mitrovic doesn't have that outrageous pace to do something in tight areas, but when he has got that little bit more space, he looks much better. Problem will be is that can they control a game and keep the ball to allow themselves to have that width? Key player, and I swear I say this every second year, Aleksandar Mitrovic, 43 goals in 44 championship games. Unbelievable. But as I say, the style of play was a huge part of that. Scott Parker, last time Fulham were in the Premier League, he wanted that sort of a bit more vertical mobility. Marco Silva's probably going to play a little bit different. His highest total is 11 in the Premier League. I think this is the year where, I guess if he gets the opportunities, I think he will take them overall. But if it comes down to sort of having pace, that's where he's going to struggle. So it comes down to how much dominance Fulham can have over a game, how much width they can offer, and how many crosses they can get in to facilitate Mitrovic. But if he scores goals, they, of course, will be safe. The biggest strength for Fulham, I think, has been the recruitment so far, actually. Palhinha is an exceptional ball winner. Solomon is unproven as a winger in the Premier League, but he's a very, very talented player. Pereira has got something to prove. You're not taking someone who's kind of past their best from a big side. You've got someone who's, as I say, got something to prove as an attacking midfielder for the side as well, and does have that bit of quality and can be that replacement quite possibly for Carvalho. Maybe he's not got the same ceiling. And then Mbabu is at 5 million, really, really good business. So I think the big strength is that previously they haven't got this recruitment right. This year it feels much better. Biggest weaknesses, 2 for me, and again, this might change between now and the time that this goes out, but the centre-back positions need to be sorted out pretty quickly. Tim Ream shouldn't be playing in the Premier League anymore. And the second one is Marco Silva. There has to be a question mark on him. Is he a manager who is good for a team that has great players and allows them to play? Can he deal with going behind? Everton never managed to win a game when they went a goal down. Fulham last year steamrolled so many different teams, but a few times they had some odd results where they kind of fell by the wayside when they were in a proper game. And they're going to be in quite a few proper games this year. Everton, what to expect? Now, not the lineup that you see in front of you right now. I think if recruitment gets done to the level that Lampard wants it, I think he wants to play 4-3-3 if that recruitment allows it. But I think Everton will be forced to start the season with 3 at the back, and they'll need to be careful and, play the long game because they don't really have the quality when it comes to midfielders. Where they are that little bit stronger, Tarkowski, Mina, Godfrey, if all fit, and, the wing-backs in Mikalenko and Patterson. So that might be the route to go down. But Everton are leaving it late with Vinagre and Dwight McNeil being announced around the same time. Key player, James Tarkowski. Look, he knows what a relegation battle is like, and let's be honest, that's probably where Everton might find themselves this year. So it's about keeping calm there and keeping the team together. And I think that's what you've got in Tarkowski, an organiser, someone who is good on the ball, who's a regular, high-quality Premier League centre-back who will bring in those players around him, keep calm, organise, and hopefully improve this defence. I don't think Everton have had a player like Tarkowski since JaackMaate left. Biggest strength, as I said, I think in terms of numbers, there's some good centre-backs there if they're fit, but the problem is they're not always fit. So I'm actually going to go for the full-back positions. Mikalenko I think he's improved as time has gone on and is looking like a good signing. Also Patterson on the right-hand side. It feels like those two are settling now, and I think they could be really, really useful. Patterson and Gordon. There's been a bit of talk about Patterson going out on loan, but that seems stupid in my opinion. Dwight McNeil and Mikalenko on that left-hand side. You've got 2 areas there that, okay, you could have those guys for a while, and if they're all up to it for a consistent amount of time in the Premier League, you could start to find a footing once again. Combining down both sides of the pitch, you can get in those crosses in for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Biggest weakness, the midfield, and in particular the central areas of midfield. Against Arsenal in pre-season, the XG was 0.24 over the 90 minutes. The recruitment of McNeil, Patterson, maybe that's going to offer up a little bit, but through the middle, there's not much going on right now. And there isn't a number 6 who can help dictate, but also have the legs to get around the pitch at this moment in time. And a lack of control means you're inviting pressure. Brentford, what to expect? Expect 4 at the back. I think this is something that they were sort of moving towards at the back end of last year, and because they did so brilliantly, they were able to do that, especially against the lesser sides, right? And with that, that means you've got another body further forward, which I think will help Ivan Toney in terms of him dropping too deep too often. I think you can also expect, obviously, the arrival of Keane Lewis-Potter, Johan Visser being involved a lot more as well, and Josh Da Silva. Big season for him. What will be crucial is that 4-3-3 that you saw in the Championship with Brentford was a bit more free-flowing, a lot more free-flowing. In the Premier League, I still expect the handbrake to be quite firmly on. Key player has to be Ivan Toney once again, but I think the change in him will come from the change of formation and the personnel that have come through the door. Playing that 4-3-3, and in particular having Rico Henry on the left-hand side, who I think a lot of people kind of slept on a bit last year. I thought it was really, really important to them. And also Aaron Hickey, who's most likely to obviously play on the right-hand side. I think you've got some crosses there that will come in. 12 goals for Ivan Toney last year, and I think he did start to score a lot more goals once Eriksson got himself in the side. And that was because, and if we look at his heat map, which is from from SofaScore. If you want to download SofaScore, there's a link in the description. You can see here that often he was far too deep. You want Ivan Toney causing trouble in the penalty box. And I think this season, with a back four, with Rico Henry and Aaron Hickey and the crosses that he can provide as well, I think he will be higher up the pitch, and I think he'll get a lot more service. And it could be a 15-plus goal season for Ivan Toney this year, if it all clicks. Biggest strength? Well, last season, I think Rico Henry, as I said, I thought was really, really strong for them because he's able to cover so much ground. He's so athletic. And 1.33 shot-creating actions last season was solid, right? As I say, he was underappreciated. Put him alongside Aaron Hickey, the ability for them to get forward, get back, not get beaten as well. Great athleticism. It's going to offer a lot on both sides of the pitch for them. And also, if Brentford want to utilise that back three, which I think they still should do, that needs to be in their arsenal, you need to have different formations. Again, you can use them as wing-backs to continue to provide that source of chance creation. That could also lead to Mbeumo being that little bit closer to Ivan Toney as well, and those two having a bit of a better chemistry than I feel that I've seen so far. Biggest weakness, it's got to be the centre of midfield for me, and not from a defensive point of view. I think you've got the work rate of Janelt, and I think Norgar's a really cracking defensive midfielder there. You've got size in that team as well, which I think they need to continue to utilise. But in terms of chance creation through the middle, Josh Da Silva's not totally been able to get it going yet, so it's a lot of pressure to put on him. Keenlo Spotter, that we're looking for him to offer something as well, but through the middle, losing Christian Eriksen, whatever way you want to kind of spin it, is a massive, massive loss for this team because you've taken out someone who is very close to being a world-class player who's signed for Man United out of this team. Manchester United, what to expect? Expect a lot of pressure. Expect hyperbole when they lose a game. I think also expect 4-3-3. Erik ten Hag is going to come in and revolutionise this side. Certainly tactically, he knows what he wants and he will look to sort of do that. And I think there's quite a few players here that whose stocks will have been very, very low, who will actually be rejuvenated by the clarity that Erik ten Hag will provide, not just for himself as an individual player, but for the team as a whole. For example, Fred and Martial being two players that supposedly were being used incorrectly, and Fred playing at the 6th position at this moment in time. Could more players come through between now and the end of the window? You would expect so, because I think that needs to be done in terms of personnel, but expect clarity from Erik ten Hag this year. Key player, didn't think I'd be saying this, Fred. Now, this is a shock. This will come as a shock. Everyone take a breath. But he's been playing as that single pivot, and so far in pre-season, he's been doing really well. It allows McTominay and Bruno to be those two 8s. Eriksen is going to come in. I'm intrigued to see where he fits into all of this as well, and we haven't really seen Van der Beek yet as well, so I guess there's 2 more options, and maybe that's why they want that ability to have those 2 8s. But Fred, therefore, is going to be really important for ball progression and for sniffing out danger. Biggest strength, a couple of things. I think, first of all, Erik ten Hag. I think the fact that his ability to focus on the details and his understanding of what he wants, I think is so, so important. And finally, Man United have got themselves a manager who's at the forefront of the game instead of someone who's trying to kind of catch up, or, likes of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who's just sort of trying to make sure everyone gets on. You've now got someone who is one of the best managers in the world. And then when it comes to those players, then previously it wasn't a team, but it was a set of individuals. If you can get that set of individuals playing as a team, you've got some new signings in the likes of Martial, Fred, Sancho, Rashford as well. So the fact that it's a fresh start, I think, is the biggest strength for them. How long that patience with them occurs, that's a different question. Biggest weakness, first of all, we've got the Ronaldo situation. Second of all, and probably the bigger one here really, is the fact that they have been overtaken in terms of the quality of their squad. I think Arsenal have a better squad now. Spurs have a better squad now. So it then comes back to the manager. And this is what I mean when we say season predictions, which I'm doing. You'll see them. There's the manager, there's the mood of the team, there's the first 11 and the squad. And the sort of quality of all of those kind of mixed together, and then of course stuff happens like injuries and things like that, but there is a bit of a disadvantage there for Man United when the squad now, it certainly doesn't look miles ahead of the likes of Spurs and Arsenal. West Ham, right, what to expect here? So Agüerd, the new centre-back, has come in, and I think this is what I can see them looking to do long-term, if you know what I mean. They might have to go back to a back 4 because he's got himself injured, but in time, I think the desire will be to have a back 3. In particular, you've got Masuaku there, don't worry. Kostic is the player, of course, that they have been linked with, and so I think last season they only played a back three 8% of the time last season. So I expect, especially with Mark Warburton coming in and a couple of strikers knocking about, you're going to want to get players in central areas. And if you are going to be able to bring someone like Kostic through the door with the quality centre-backs and the size that you've got in this team, it's a really little smart move for them to make, because you're just going to have just so many giants in that team, Rice and Souček in the middle as well. And they could be so dangerous from set pieces. Key player has to be Declan Rice. Fantastic that they've been able to keep hold of him. There was always going to be all that talk, but he's still there, which is, I think, huge for West Ham, who, again, can be excited about the new season. And I think what's slept on when it comes to him is his ability to be incisive, ability to progress the ball, be it carrying the ball, but also he had 6.6 passes into the final third per 90, which would put him in the top 8% of midfielders in Europe last season. So he keeps getting better and better. Obviously, it's a big year for him when it comes to England as well, but I think he will continue to be the linchpin of this West Ham side. Biggest strength, I think, the gentle consistency of West Ham in terms of building the squad. It's a better squad this year than it was last year. And the players have got better as well, keeping hold of the likes of Jared Bowen and Declan Rice. And, as I spoke about earlier, the size of this team. I think if you can get the right kind of set-piece delivery, which you've got the players to do so, you've got a team that really should be at top of that table when it comes to set-piece goals. And that can be the difference between winning games and losing games. Biggest weakness is, at the moment, they don't have that left back, and that will be a real shame if they don't get that sorted out. The second thing I would say is that it's not a weakness, it's just, again, another hurdle for them, is that West Ham are now seen as a very good side, and with that comes different expectations. Are they good enough to break teams down under David Moyes, or are they going to rely too much on the size and physicality of the squad, and will that hit a ceiling? That could be a weakness for them. Crystal Palace, what to expect? Expect a bit of fun. I like this squad. I like this team. And I think it's got that bite in midfield with Doucouré in particular, Hughes as well. That's going to allow this team to really hurt the opposition at times with that front four, in particular the Zaha, Eze and Elise, three that are going to hurt teams on the break, because they're perfectly suited for that this year. So expect some counter-attacking goals. Key player, Wilfried Zaha. Yes, it's an obvious pick, but I think there's actually a few interesting elements to this. Now, you could have gone with Cheick Doucouré, who has come into this team and is just going to be so exciting in the Premier League after his output last season. Then you've got someone like Mark Gay, who at 22 is just so composed as a centre-back. And I think if they get the right amount of money for him when the big club comes calling, that's going to be huge for Crystal Palace as well. But the reason I go with Wilfried Zaha is because the attacking options continue to grow and flourish. The team becomes more solid and dominant. And when that happens, that means that they're not a one-man team. And that means it plays into the hands of Zaha, because he has more room to do more damage. And he's still a massive problem for every single right back in this division. Biggest strength, this will surprise you. Actually, it's the solidity at the back. If you think of Gay and Anderson, really strong centre-back partnership. Young, two that are only going to get better. Chris Richard comes in from Bayern Munich, which is great depth. Tompkins, in terms of a leader, is there as well. Yeah, okay, he's waning, but he's a good person to have around the club as well. Conceded 46 goals last season, which was the 7th best defence in the league, and they were terrible at set pieces. If they can resolve that problem with Doucouré in front of them as well, they're going to be very hard to break down, and that creates the platform for those forward players. Biggest weakness, Palace's problem is probably similar to Brighton's, is that I'm just not totally convinced in the centre forward position. So many teams need a striker right now, and Crystal Palace, I think, are kind of similar. I like Mateta, hasn't totally fulfilled it. Edouard, does he play on the left? Does he play through the middle? Can he do it at the Premier League level? Benteke in 2022 shouldn't be happening, really. So the centre forward position is the big weakness. Tottenham, what to expect? So the best way to encapsulate this, I think, is think Conte at Chelsea. You've got the back three there, and then think of the front three playing very narrow. Kulusevski, Kane's son, who was so great at the back end of last season. And then think about the wing backs pushing high and offering a lot of width from those players in particular. And then think of that axis at Chelsea, Matic and Kante. That's your Bentancur and Basuma. Key player, Harry Kane. Is there a world where Tottenham is successful and Harry Kane's not firing? Everything feels like he's going to explode this year. Not literally. How many times have I got to say this? I think the way that they're going to be so much more dominant. He's going to play more centrally. Yes, he'll pick up the ball and create assists. And last year, 16 goals, 15 assists, which is a joke when you think of how difficult it was for him at the start of the season. Works really well with Kulusevski as well, but I think he'll be more central and he'll get in the penalty box more often as well, and he'll have more chances. So I just think he's going to kill it this year. Absolutely kill it. It's going to be a huge season for the Tottenham vice captain. If you know, you know. Biggest strength for Tottenham is that they have strength in depth now. They've bought a £60 million player and who's not guaranteed to start. Richarlison, Basuma, Jed Spence, Longley, Perisic, all really good, or you could consider great players, we'll see. But all players that aren't guaranteed to start, or certainly could have a bit of rotation as well. So the beauty of that, and the beauty of a side that goes and does something special, is that they have a manager who knows what's needed to win a title, but also they have a squad that is competitive and has depth, and this Spurs side has depth. Biggest weaknesses, and I've got to be honest, there aren't that many when it comes to Spurs right now. And maybe it's the fact that, and I don't want to go down this road, but it's like, Spurs want to win things, right? They haven't done that. And that is always something, a hurdle for them to get over. But in terms of the playing squad, the one thing is that Harry Kane, who can get injured at times, I think that's the one area where you don't have that replacement. I mean, now, of course, how can you replace Harry Kane? But Richarlison comes in terms of someone who drops deep and knits it together at times. Richarlison isn't really that guy. And so if you lose someone like that, that's going to be a big, big loss for Spurs this season. Bournemouth, what to expect? Expect a bit of a struggle. Now, I like Scott Parker. He's clearly an intelligent man and a good manager who makes his teams well drilled. And the broader talking point when it comes to a team that's newly promoted is, can you deal with the gap in quality? Because you're in the Championship for a reason, and then you make your way up. I look at this starting 11, and you've got a lot of players there that you just can't figure out. If they were a squad player in a higher up team, a bigger club, you would go, okay, they're a Premier League player. But all put together, there's a lot of question marks at the moment. If you think of down the left-hand side last season, Anthony and Zamora were fantastic, have no Premier League experience. And in terms of really being settled as Premier League campaigners, there's a few players there that have huge, huge question marks on if they are ultimately good enough. So the big question for me, and I do wonder if this is what they will do, is that they will look at the likes of, say, Brentford last year, or in previous years, teams that play a little bit more direct. And in Solanke and Kiefer Moore, you've got two guys, big guys, who are mobile as well. Will they look to utilise those two players and the physical aspects of the game to give themselves that chance? Key player, Dominic Solanke. Look, he hasn't done it in the Premier League, is what I mean. There's a lot of question marks with the players here. But last season, there did feel like a real change in him, and it was starting to happen the season before. But 29 goals last season from an XG of 28.89. That means he was bang on in terms of his quality, and he really did look a level above. So is he a level above? And when it comes to him being a key player, the bottom line is, if Bournemouth have a striker, again, a turn to Brentford, you have an Ivan Toney who scores well over 10 goals, you're giving yourself a real chance. And Solanke needs to be that guy. Now is the time to become that Premier League striker like Bamford was, like Ivan Toney is. Not that Bamford isn't, I'm just saying, you know what I mean, it's the season before. Biggest strength is the fact that there's an overall level to the team, and they're no mugs. They also a nice little snidey side to them. If you think of the likes of Billing, the likes of Pearson, Lerma, Kiefer Moore, Solanke as well. You've got a physicality there of people that kind of won't be flimsy like previous Bournemouth sides. Maybe, you could have accused them of that. So in terms of maybe in Scott Parker's image, having the technical ability, but also having that little bit of steel about them, I think this Bournemouth side does have that. Biggest weakness, centre-back position, and between now and this video going out, if a player's come through, I hope it's a centre-back, because I think that's where they're struggling. Again, question marks about Kelly as a centre-back, in terms of the fact that he's been out of the Premier League for a couple of years. I do actually think he's good enough. Mepham, I'm not totally sold on, to be honest, and then think they need a bit more depth there as well. And then overall, I think this is the weakest squad in the Premier League, which I would say is a weakness, because so far they've only brought in Joe Rothwell and Ryan Fredericks. So it then comes down to if Scott Parker can find the answers. Leeds United, what to expect? Expect a transformed team. Yes, you've lost the two big hitters in Rafinha and Phillips, but the players that have come through, there are several of them. And they're players that Jesse Marsch wanted. They're players that Jesse Marsch was able to get in pretty early, and so they were ready for pre-season. And I think you've got a team here that, if it works or if it doesn't work, at least they've given themselves the best chance by Jesse Marsch having that time with this team. It looks like it's going to be a 4-2-3-1. And the important thing here is right in the middle of that team, Adams and Rocker in that double pivot. Key player, Mark Rocker, a player who did some amazing stuff at Espanyol and then got bought by Bayern Munich just to sit on the bench, really. And I know Tim, my Bayern Munich fan, he's mine. He was a huge fan of his and didn't want him to leave. He will pick up the ball from the centre-backs. That Spanish left foot, and it's important that Spanish is just gorgeous. It's lovely. It's like its own little tapas there. Picking up the balls off the centre-backs, spraying the ball about, playing those passes, recycling possession, also disrupting the opposition's attacks as well. I think he could be a real star, and you know what I'm like with midfielders like this. I think he's one that I'm really, really excited to watch far more this season, and alongside Tyler Adams, who's going to be more of the aggressor, you've got the makings of a beautiful partnership there. Biggest strength is the fact that Jesse Marsch will be able to play in the way that he wants to. Last year with the injuries, there's a lot of firefighting, just get over the line. And look, he did that. This year, the biggest strength, I think, has been the recruitment, because you were always going to lose those players. So you have to bring in new guys and you have to hope that it works. But they need to feel like the right fit. And that's a huge strength for Jesse Marsch going into this season. Biggest weaknesses, now some might disagree with this, but I think it's the centre-back position, because there wasn't a solid partnership that you could go to. And if you think Liam Cooper missed 16 games last season, Struijk missed 6 games as well. The only one who regularly played was Llorente, who a lot of people aren't totally sold upon. And Koch missed 19. And I think the important thing here is that you always want a Koch that lasts. I was just desperate to get to that gag. I wasn't bothered about the analysis. I just wanted to get to that punchline. Fuck it. Subscribe if you want more cock jokes, by the way, because I am shameless. Cut to a close-up of me doing it now. I mean, who wants a cock that doesn't last? Arsenal, what to expect? I think Arsenal fans are excited, and I think they are allowed to be excited. It's been a very good transfer window. I think the transfer window prior to that as well, it really showcased Mikel Arteta's vision. And last season, they didn't make top 4, 69 points. If they can get over that this year, plus 70 points, that gives them a real shot at top 4. And I think that's what you can expect. And you expect a team that is young, the youngest in the division, but one that has now gained that little bit of experience. I guess the question is, will there be any kind of psychological problems with the end of the season and then falling away so far? Time, of course, will tell. In terms of playing style, 4-3-3, asymmetric system. You've got Odegaard, who drifts over to that right-hand side, Saka on that right wing. Martinelli has been quite prominent in pre-season. And, of course, Zinchenko coming into the team. Partey's going to sit at the base, and then Zinchenko will knit it all together. But it's a side that can play out from the back quite comfortably, but also hurt you on the counter-attack. So it's a very fluid team. Key player for me has to be Gabriel Jesus. You were looking at that team last year and you were thinking, how good could this team be with a high-quality striker? And that's what they've got. You know, we all wondered, we did a video on the channel looking at how they would set up with him. And the big question mark was, is he that good? And does he just need that little bit of confidence? He, from the pre-season, looks very, very special, to be honest, for Arsenal. The movement's fantastic. Obviously, he knows Arteta really, really well. And with that confidence and the goals against Everton and Chelsea, as much as you shouldn't read into pre-season too much, I think you've got an exciting player on your hands here. And he could be the missing piece of the puzzle. Biggest strength in terms of talent at the front end of the pitch, yep, it's pretty good. And of course, they have strengthened a little bit. But actually, it's the defence that I think is probably the strength for them. Last season, they conceded 48 goals. From next year, 47. That was 8th best in the division. But this year, in terms of the solid options in every position, and they're kind of, you know, injury-proof to a point as well. I think if they can get into the top 4 of both of those metrics in terms of scoring goals, but importantly, conceding goals, they give themselves a great chance. Biggest weakness for me is a lack of depth in two crucial positions. Thomas Partey in the number 6 position and the number 9 position. Yes, you brought in Jesus. Of course, you had to bring in someone, and at least you're bringing someone who improves that starting 11. And Nketiah has grown and developed as the years have gone on. I think it's good for him. It's one where, will he be that backup striker? I think it's most likely. It'll be interesting to see how many games he gets. But then after that, of course, that's it. And without Partey, it's El Neni as the defensive midfielder who's got to pick up the ball and start play. He's not really good enough, and that's a problem and a difference between the Arsenals of this world and the Man Cities and the Liverpools. Want to know where I think they're going to finish? Well, watch my season prediction. Right, Leicester City, what to expect? Well, it might come as a bit of a surprise, but expect a back 3. At the time of recording, Fofana is still a Leicester City player, and James Justin, as that right-sided centre-back, has been used there, and that's interesting. I think good for his prospects as an England player for the World Cup as well. Also, with this 3-4-2-1, it will allow the likes of Barnes and Maddison to sort of play in the channels and play a little bit more centrally, maybe to get a little bit closer to Jamie Vardy, and in particular with Maddison, to give him that opportunity to continue to score goals. To give you a good reference point for this would be quite similar to the way Chelsea played last season. Key player, I think it has now become James Maddison. If you follow on from last season, it was a great season for him. 12 goals, 8 assists last season from 27.2 90s. And I think this change in system could be down to the fact that Brendan Rodgers is looking at his squad now. And Maddison now, someone who's maybe a little bit flimsy at times, someone you couldn't totally trust, is now someone who he can trust and is getting output from. Biggest strength could be the back 3. I know I'm talking about it a lot, but this 3 at the back system, if you think of the likes of Söyüncü, the likes of Vestergaard, Amate, struggled in a back 4, really did. 59 goals conceded last year, the 7th worst defence. I think if you can change that, then obviously you're conceding less goals, which is going to give you a chance to score more points and bump up the confidence, which I think was really hurting Leicester at times last season. Added to that, fact that the set piece had been so poor last year, to have another centre-back in there, more defensive player that can allow you to go to a 5, might give them that better chance and that better platform to win games. The biggest weakness for Leicester City is after building something so exciting, it does feel like they're standing still in the transfer market. Now, they don't need to buy loads of players, but if you're not going to buy players, make sure you don't lose key members of the squad. And at the moment, you've got aging players. You've got players like Kasper Schmeichel, who's obviously been there for so long, and that will leave a massive hole. I mean, obviously, they'll play another goalkeeper, but you know what I mean in terms of the culture and the understanding of and the feeling of that squad. Schmeichel's obviously been a big part of it. Evans is getting older. Fofana linked with moves away. Vardy getting older as well. It feels a little bit stale, and there's not much excitement around the club right now, which is a problem. Brighton and Hove Albion. What to expect? Well, last year, 39% of their games, they played a back 3. This year, I expect that to be far more prominent because you've got 3 great centre-backs there. Duffy came back, actually, did really well for them. But the important thing here is Lamptey. Lamptey being fit and firing, you want to give him that freedom to get up and down. And I think, yes, they might utilise the 4-4-1-1, which Graham Potter likes to have available to him at times, but it will allow the likes of Trossard and McAllister to continue to be narrow forwards because the width is being provided by Lamptey in particular on that right-hand side. Key player, I'm going to go for Moises Caicedo. The reason I'm going to say him is because I think obviously losing Basuma is a massive loss for them, really. And he came in at the start of April, looked pretty instantly at home, and I think it's a huge season for him. If he can fill the shoes of Basuma, if you think of the stats for him last year, he was averaging 3.3 tackles and interceptions last season, which is, I think, promising. It's a great start. If he can look to sort of win the ball back and then give it to those exciting players like the likes of Trossard and McAllister, I think that Basuma gap that you will lose from losing a player of that quality hopefully won't hurt them as much as some people might think. Biggest strength for me is the overall running of the club, in my opinion. I think you've got a smart manager there who continues to develop, but also I think the profile of the players that come through, I think they've seen, the bright lights of the likes of Basuma, for example, going on, or Ben White going on to those big clubs. So it is a great stage for them. You've heard recently of JaackMaate talking about not wanting to go to West Ham to wanting to go to the Premier League. And I think their recruitment is very smart in terms of how they use their money in different areas of the world. But the likes of Mwepo, Enciso, Casado, Matoma, Ferguson are all players that I really like. And then, you know, the likes of Trossard and McAllister, Lallana, someone coming in and being a bit cute there. It's like they're brave players who get on the ball, and that will always give you a chance for a team that's in mid-table. And yes, these are players that we don't know a lot about, but they're players that quite often are well recruited and are then developed at Brighton and become really, really good Premier League assets. The biggest compliment I can give Brighton is the fact that when you think of Brighton Hove Albion, you don't think of individuals, you think of the collective. Biggest weaknesses, it's kind of the other side of the coin a little bit. First of all, you know, a lot of these players are potential. The second thing that I would say is the fact that there does feel like there's a few kind of glaring gaps in the squad at the moment that need strengthening. If Cucurella goes, you've got massive problems in the left-sided centre-back position and the left wing-back position. And I imagine that would be something that would get sorted because it's a smart football club, but it's not something that's sorted as of yet. And secondly, for me, the striker position. I think that you need goals to win games. And yes, the collective is well drilled, but Undav comes in and it's a lot of pressure on a guy who's come from the Belgian league. And ultimately, the likes of Maupay and Welbeck, Ferguson, Zakiri and Donit doesn't sound great. Liverpool, what to expect? Expect a team that moves through the thirds very, very aggressively. Of course, there's been some big changes, and in pre-season, there's a lot of experimenting that feels like it's going on right now. Of course, you've lost someone like Mane, and when you have a player like that, you're never going to truly replace them. And do you want to even replace them with a like for like? It feels like they're going in a new direction. Darwin Núñez has come in. It's very, very different. So expect them to look to try and get those attacking balls to him as quickly as possible. Those vertical passes. Trent playing in a really, really central area at the moment as well, and expect Diaz to really hug the touchline and then to come inside from there as well. So there's a lot of tactical intricacies that I think might take a second to embed into the side, but are really, really exciting and will allow us to see a new Liverpool this year. Key player has to be Mo Salah, the top scorer for the last 4 consecutive seasons in a team of this quality that scored as many goals as it has, and he's never had them on his shoulders. You know, you got the likes of Virgil van Dijk, Trent, Thiago, Henderson, list goes on in terms of important players. In terms of irreplaceable players, I think they've kind of lost one in Mane, and the fact that someone of Mane's quality is allowed to go because you've got someone like Mohamed Salah doesn't put pressure on him, because he's always had that pressure on him and he's always fulfilled it. But he is the main man for Liverpool now that he's signed that contract as well, and he's going to be absolutely crucial with Liverpool this year. Biggest strength when it comes to Liverpool, I think, is the fact that you have a beautiful mixture there. You know, in terms of profiles of players, you've got a team, and it is a team, and they work so brilliantly. And for example, you have people say Trent and Robertson. They're so different. You know, Henderson's so different to Thiago. Darwin Núñez is now a different profile to anything that they've got there as well. So many different elements to the team. Harvey Elliott, very different to Salah. The list goes on. I think that's a beautiful mixture for them to have, because it allows them to find answers. The second thing I've got to say is you've got a visionary in Jurgen Klopp who signed that new contract. That means he's going to be there for a long time, wants to see this club evolve, and he has the answers in his head. And I think you can trust that he will allow this team to evolve, but also continue to play at such a high level. And the most important thing in football is about having the answers, and I think Jurgen Klopp always finds the answers. Biggest weakness, I mean, maybe the fact that they're a sensible club whilst being a huge club. You know, some people will go, well, what about in the 6th position? Do we need another guy? Could we got Tchouaméni through the door? I don't know. It's one of those ones where I'm struggling when it comes to weaknesses. I think what is a difficulty for Liverpool this year is that, you know, Mane has gone. I do think that is a big part for them to play in terms of how they've been so steady in terms of their style of play over the last 4 or 5 years. And if you take a cog like that out, there has to be a moment of discomfort to lead to growth, to create the chemistry. And that is a weakness that's something they've got to figure out on the job, because there's no other way around it. So what to expect from Nottingham Forest? Well, expect the same tactically, which is 3 at the back, and then you've got 2 wing-backs who like to stay high up the pitch, 2 grafters in midfield with great stamina, and then dynamic forwards. But expect different personnel, because there's been so many changes to this team whilst retaining the profiles that got them promoted in the first place. Key player, Brennan Johnson. Now, that's maybe a little bit of pressure to put on him, but with all these new signings, I think it's important to kind of probably go for someone who has been there. Now, last season, 16 goals and 10 assists as a shadow striker, and the fact that Awoniyi is there, he's going to be that Keenan Davis type player. He's going to play in the same way. He's going to drift over to that right channel at times, but importantly, his finishing is so strong. Coming up to the Premier League, of course, it's another test for him to see if he really is that good a finisher up against better goalkeepers. But last year, he only missed 3 big chances, which is really impressive. So I think he's going to be absolutely fine in the Premier League, and I think he'll be a real star for Nottingham Forest this year. Biggest strength for Nottingham Forest is the fact that as a team that went up through the playoffs, that hasn't been a weakness. The recruitment has been so purposeful. They've upgraded in pretty much every area, I would say. It's pretty close. You know, maybe James Garner's that little bit better than... But it's close. Lewis O'Brien's a really exciting player. So to be able to make those changes and for them to come up as a playoff side, for that to not hurt them in the transfer window, I think is a huge strength because you're taking away a disadvantage from them. Biggest weakness, look, the bottom line is, even though I'm quite impressed by the players that have come in terms of Premier League experience, what is it? Dean Henderson and Lingard, that's it. That is a glaring weakness because, you know, it's something that they're going to have to cope with and go to these grounds, get points, deal with the pressure of all of it. And this is Nottingham Forest. This isn't a small club. This is a big club. So not having any Premier League proven players is certainly a weakness for Forest. Southampton, what to expect? Well, it's a bit unknown if you don't know a lot about youth football, and I think a lot of people are kind of in that bracket. But Southampton are trying to be very clever here, and with the likes of Lavia, Bella Mara up top as well, some new signings there. But they have recruited to fit the style of Hasenhüttl, so I expect to continue to see a 4-2-2-2. Key player, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but Romeo Lavia. Now, of course, we can go James Ward-Prowse, and yes, he's really crucial. Of course he is, but I just wanted to talk about someone different because that's all people do when they talk about Southampton. And this is an 18-year-old Anderlecht product who's been at Man City, not played in the Premier League yet. But if you think of Livramento and what he was able to achieve last season as a young man, Lavia comes in as a holding midfielder who will play alongside James Ward-Prowse and could be crucial. You know, I think those two and that midfield is so important when you're playing the way that they do in transition. So it's going to be great for his development, but he could be key for Southampton as well with the quality and the extreme talent that Hasenhüttl believes that he has. Biggest strength, the signings have very high ceilings. Yes, they're all potential at the moment, but if you think of the likes of Joe Aribo, who is actually a really strong player, has played a lot of games of football and really important games as well. I think he goes into Southampton slightly different to the other players, the likes of Seko Mara, the likes of Bazunu as well, and Lavia, as we've spoken about. You've got a lot of players there that do have a really high ceiling, and that gives you a chance. And it's a new look Southampton, which is important because I think they needed that new excitement. Certainly the fans did. Biggest weaknesses, you could turn it on its head and talk about the youngsters in this new squad and the growing pains that will come with that and the silly mistakes that might happen as well. The problem I see when I look at Southampton is that there's no plan B, there's no secondary style. Hasenhüttl is so drilled towards this way of playing, and time and again you've seen them wane in games and struggle. And so to not have different answers at times just feels like a huge weakness for Southampton. And it's one where they can go on a great run, but they can also go on a terrible run and you don't know how they're going to get out of it because it's the same stuff. Wolves, what to expect? Expect a move to a back four, a 4-3-3. Jimenez is going to be out for the first month of the season, which is a real blow for them. But in terms of midfield, I think this is what Bruno Lage wanted to do. I think that's what we were wondering last year, is what are they going to do, because he's always played a back four. He's done it nice and slowly, but I think what is interesting is that, first of all, Connor Cody's going to struggle to get into this side, especially with Collins coming through the door. Previously, I was thinking, well, hang on, why are they getting another centre-back? Maybe they want a different centre-back, and Cody is maybe not up to it anymore. That's what I seem to be reading a lot of. Also, Morgan Gibbs-White, who is waiting to sign that new contract. I think he wants assurances of if he's going to start games, could really thrive in this setup. Neto is back from injury as well, which is another boost for them, but that Jimenez loss is a bad blow for a club that is struggling in terms of mood right now. Key player, Ruben Neves. He is still there, and I think he's going to play as a single pivot instead of that double pivot with João Moutinho, as has previously been the case when they've played a back three with Morgan Gibbs-White in there as well. It will come back to him playing as the number 6, which I think he's totally capable of, and I've been waiting for him to see that. I'm excited to see the handbrake come off for Wolves. It'd be interesting to see how they get on when they aren't as secure, if that will help or hinder them this year. Have they got the quality to take the handbrake off? Biggest strength, easy one this, it's of course the defence, but there are changes to that, as you know, but they have got good players there when it comes to a back three, and if they do get into a sticky situation and need to revert to that, that's there and available to them. They only conceded 43 goals last season, which was the best defensive record outside of the top four, and in Jose Sarr, he had a goalkeeper who had a cracking season for them last year. He had a +9 post-shot expected goals, which essentially means that he saved 9 goals from going in, so a great goalkeeper, and a goalkeeper that no other goalkeeper did better than him in the league last year. Again, looking at last season's data, the creativity going forward was really, really poor from Wolves, and they were boring to watch, I've got to be honest. They came second bottom when it comes to XG created last year, 35.9. The only worst team was Norwich City last year. Raul Jimenez totaled 57 shots last season. Next up was Ruben Neves, and he had 42 shots, but the average distance of those shots, 26 yards. So in terms of shots inside the box, you had Raul Jimenez, who had 43 shots, which isn't that much, and then no one else was anywhere near him. So they need to get more bodies in the box, they need to be a bit more incisive with how they play, and they need more bodies higher up the pitch, which this back four could lead to. They also desperately need another Premier League proven forward to compete with Raul Jimenez, who's getting injured and getting older. Aston Villa, what to expect? Expect narrowness. Now, will they stick with this? They have been toying with a few things and made some changes in a recent pre-season friendly at half-time against Manchester United. The dream is for Gerrard to do what he did at Rangers and have that look and style of play come across to Aston Villa. So that means a narrow midfield diamond, without the ball, very congested, and the fullback areas will be crucial. First of all, in terms of going forward, Cash and Digne pushing forward. But then without the ball, the possibility that because it's such a congested midfield, teams will go around the sides and they might get a little bit overrun. Up top, I think there's a strong desire to have split strikers, so Watkins and Ings, Leon Bailey if you can get him involved as well, and I think Coutinho will be the main man ahead of Buendia, quite obviously, because when he is on fire, he's pretty special. Key player, I'm going to go with Matty Cash, because of that system, and if they do stick with it, then he's going to be integral. In terms of shot creating actions last year, 1.44 shot creating actions per 90 last season. Fully expect that to go through the roof. Luca Digne on the other side, it was 3.26 per 90. Gets involved in set pieces as well at times, so that's probably why those numbers are so much better. But Cash is so dependable, and Dean can get injured at times. So with a team that's focused on, yes, having a lot of bodies in the midfield, but that service coming from those wide players, Matty Cash is going to be crucial, and he has developed year on year. Biggest strength? I think the biggest strength is the fact that probably the expectations aren't outrageously high. I guess it's one of those ones where Gerrard would have come in, I have no doubt would have had a vision for what he wanted from the squad moving forward, and I think with the signings in January, you start to see a few more of those pieces, but ultimately the MO would have been to stay in the division, and of course they got that done. Going into this new season, they have made changes in the backroom staff. Mick Beale has gone to my team, QPR. But Neil Critchley has come back from Blackpool, being a manager. And so now as an assistant manager will be very, very impressive. At Blackpool, they were very awkward at times. And I think that's one big thing with Aston Villa in terms of without the ball. I think he will make them very more tactically adaptable this season, which is a real strength because the personnel is strong. Biggest weakness for me is the ability to control the game. Last year, McGinn and Ramsey, who I like them both and they have lovely qualities. In terms of completing passes, it was 29.3 and 32.8 passes per 90 in that right centre midfield, left centre midfield position. That's in the bottom 15% of Premier League midfielders. So with that means a lack of control and quite possibly an inability to keep the lead. And so if the season starts off and feels a little bit frantic, have these players got the quality to keep the ball, basically, to complete passes, and in a congested midfield, get the ball and move it on effectively? Manchester City, the champions. Will they be champions again? Watch my season prediction video, and then you'll find out what I think, at least. In terms of the setup, it will be 4-3-3, and I think, say, Cucurella comes through the door, not literally, fuck it. Then expect Cancelo to move over to the right-hand side, and Kyle Walker may be starting to be used in rotation. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Will Guardiola do what he often does, which is kind of give that player that first season to kind of get their feet under the table? In terms of a player that's been there a year, also keep an eye out on Grealish on that left wing. I think he's going to be used more and more. He spent 100 million on this guy, so now's the time for him to start to have a settled position in the side and be playing every single week. And keep an eye out for Foden on the right-hand side, because I think you would wonder it would be a big season for Mahrez, but there's been some rumours about Foden being on that right-hand side. But expect the boy Haaland to score lots of goals and to stay central all the time. Key player, Rodri. I think he really stepped it up last season, player of the season for a lot of Man City fans. And if we have a look at his FB ref, it's pretty outrageous. Now, obviously, that is exaggerated due to the fact that Man City are very, very dominant as a team, certainly with possession. But his passing numbers were great. He was scoring more goals. I think he's totally at ease with the physicality of the league now as well. He was such an enabler for this side and really, really proved me wrong, to be honest, because I wasn't sure about him for a while. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he's class now. Biggest strength, first of all, I think it's the water torture, their ability to strangle the opposition. And I think in a league format, I think that really does start to suffocate oppositions week in, week out. And that's why they have been so dominant in the Premier League. And maybe there's been a few moments in the Champions League where it's been a little bit more different. The other thing is that they have added one of the best strikers in the world right now. And that's for a team that has won the league the last 2 seasons without a striker, really. So for Haaland to add another layer, they look pretty devastating, I've got to be honest. Biggest weaknesses, the loss of Jesus and Sterling. You're losing 2 real soldiers for Guardiola who understand how the team plays, who come into the side, go out of the side and get on with it, who works super, super hard. And importantly, you've lost a lot of pace, actually, from losing those 2 players. You've now got players who are going to want to cut inside into traffic maybe at times. And so where are those runs going to come from? Time will tell with that. Of course, you've got Haaland involved as well. But I really do feel like Haaland would have benefited from having someone like Raheem Sterling playing week in, week out. So there you have it, guys. All you need to know about the 2022-23 season. As I said earlier in the video, we are sponsored by Top 11. It's an amazing free-to-play game. If you're into football management and you want to have some fun, make sure you download it. Links in the description. Costs you nothing to play. Get involved. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you next time.